In this video, I will show you the new InBetweening feature of Cascadeur 2025. This is a phenomenal tool that isn't quite there yet, but already has a tremendous amount of capability. And I believe over time, as this gets better and gets more styles, more animation coverage, better foot locking, and better connectivity to the physics tools, this capability is going to absolutely revolutionize the way animations are made and dramatically speed up both the ability for experienced animators to create animations and for bringing in even more novice, more inexperienced animators and leveling up the animations that they can create. This video is not an overview of Cascadeur. In case you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going to their YouTube channel. I'll link it below. Cascadeur is an attempt at a reimagining of an animation content creation tool. It uses AI-assisted posing. It has a bunch of physics-based tools for spring secondary motion to get your overshoot and settle, as well as ballistic tool to allow you to handle jumping, falling, all of the things like that. It does support auto rigging as well as a retargeter in the pro version. It has, and that's just for humanoids, of course. One of the major features they tout is animation unbaking, which allows you to take mocap, which has keyframes on every single frame for every single control, and it attempts to figure out how to interpolate that and reduce the number of frames that have keyframes so that you get back kind of the golden poses, or you get the minimum keyframed version of that animation, which makes it much easier to edit. Now, my preference is in Unreal and Maya, you have animation layers, and Unreal has the additional additive control rigs, but I still prefer animation layers. That allows you to just sit on top of the mocap and modify it, manipulate it, and change it however you wish without affecting the underlying data. So it is a non-destructive workflow using animation layers over the animation unbaking in Cascadeur. And I just think it makes a lot more sense because it's easier you can toggle that on and off and see what the effect is of your layers, and you can just keep doing layer upon layer to get the animation manipulation that you require. So for me personally, I prefer the layer approach for animating and for modifying mocap, but the animation unbaking is a really cool tool. And of note, animation is hard. However, I started animating using Cascadeur. It was the first DCC or digital content creation tool I ever used, and it got me into animating. I don't know that I would be an animator now if Cascadeur didn't exist and hadn't pulled me into it, because it made it look so easy. And getting into it, I was just able to create animations so quickly. They were very janky. They were very unnatural. I didn't understand the principles of animation, and Cascadeur will not shortcut you past having to know the principles of animation, having to understand overshoot and settle, lead and follow, squash and stretch, spacing, timing, all of those aspects that you just have to know to make non-robotic, non-floaty, grounded animations. But Cascadeur is a fantastic way to get into animation. And it now supports ragdolling. There's just so much in there would be, fun. You should use it as a tool. I'll bounce back to Cascadeur if I need to, if I want to try out, for now that it has the in-betweening, that might actually be something I use to speed up my animation workflow, even though I'm predominantly working in Unreal. Okay, that's enough rambling. Let's get into the actual content, which is walking through Cascadeur's 2025 update and specifically the in-betweening tool. I'm going to take you through a whole bunch of examples that try to show where it works well, where the limits are, where it doesn't perform well, and how you can maybe work around some of those shortfalls. But on balance, this is a phenomenal capability that is going to revolutionize the way animations are done, or more specifically, revolutionize the speed at which hand-keyed animations can be created. Let's get into it. Cascadeur just released their 2025.1 version, which has in-betweening. And so I'm going to take you through where it is right now in its very first version. And shout out to Cascadeur for releasing the most important animating feature that I've seen in a digital content creation tool in I don't know how long. For starters, you can go to cascadeur.com/download and pull down the version that's right for your system. And pricing is actually pretty simple. And yes, this is another tool that has a subscription-based and annual and yearly pricing for how you purchase it. But if you do an annual license, it converts to perpetual at the end of the term if you don't renew. So whatever last version you had while your license was still active, you get to keep it and use it forever. And that is exactly how software should be, because they're providing you value that you get to keep as opposed to rent. So we'll start with a character taking a step. I created a few keyframes. So here, this is obviously just the base pose where they start, and I want them to end up right here. But what I noticed, I'll show you what happens when I remove the in-between key. Let's just save this real quick. All right. So I put in a key in the middle to try to just give them somewhat of a, and I'm using Shift D to move between the keyframes. So now let's see when I select the whole thing, Shift click over here, that's going to select the whole thing, and click the in-betweening button. And then when I hit X, are there problems? Absolutely. Is it, foot slidey? Does it have a bunch of things? The foot sliding you can probably fix with auto physics and the fulcrum tools, but just for doing nothing, for making 3 poses, that's just it's already quite impressive, and it's going to save a bunch of time. Does it make the most dynamic animations? No, of course not. But I think a lot of that is just due to the initial small size of the database that they have for doing the in-betweening. They collected a bunch of mocap, and I think it is just a situation where improving the in-betweening algorithm to handle foot contacts, to incorporate auto physics out of the box, is going to drive this significantly up in capability. But also just collecting more mocap or giving the users the ability to provide our own data sets, our own animation sets to perform in-betweening would just dramatically improve the value of this tool as it sits right now. But let's talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead and take out that in-between key and redo, so you can kind of see what happens. Oh, I've got to actually see. It tells you in the bottom right corner when you are being an idiot. So I click in-betweening and see. So there's nothing wrong with this, but if you just look at it, it's just not, it's a lot less. So if I go back to this and then redo it, you can see the difference. See, I just gave him that, the turn, just made it a little more natural, and I got a lot better out of it. So now we'll do one where I have 2 keys. I have one where he's standing and one where he has turned 90 degrees to the left while moving to the right and getting down onto his hands. And let's see what that does. So when I run in-betweening on it, that is quite fantastic. I need to fix you can see again, it's always going to be foot contact issues. It's not really doing a good job at pinning the feet and doing the fulcrums and all that kind of stuff. But some of that is stuff that you can just go correct with auto physics or correct yourself in the cleaning process. But the actual motion, the amount of time that would save me from having to do this, it's even picking the right. You can see the character is bending down while they take the step. They put their foot down and they come around. Now, you could argue there's like a human is not like, you need to pin these and you need to move them over the contacts so that the center of gravity isn't going to pull him, make him roll this way. So there are some things where it's not quite right. He should go straight down, both arms onto the ground when the foot comes out, so that you have a nice 3 points of contact, a nice stable ground contact. However, the amount of time this would save me I can go do that now in a lot less time than it would have taken to animate it. And the way I can do it is when I get to the point where I feel like they should both be down at the ground, I can just go put them there. So let's go to where I want to be. So I wanted him to already be pinned, but let's just go here. We'll create there we go. It's asking, do we want to lock all of the auto posing controls so that he stays in this exact position based on how it goes? And so I'm going to say no, just so you see what happens. So now that's just not a good look. So in this case, I'm going to actually say yes, but that's going to pin everything. So now I'm going to actually just be manually manipulating this model without any of the real auto posing benefits, but that's okay. That's actually what I want. So yes. And I said yes, not yes on all animation, because I don't want that to be the case permanently. I'm going to need to bring Actually, I'm going to leave the hips where they are, and I'm just going to bring the head down. And let's see where we are now. I'll probably bring it back up, but that's his foot. Yeah, it is somewhat difficult sometimes to know what control you're grabbing in Cascadeur, that's for sure. We can make him, he actually is probably going to be leaning more this way, but let's just have him leaning the way he's leaning. We'll go ahead and bring this up, because yeah, and we'll call that a good in-between frame. Now, so let's take that exactly as is. Okay, so that's already actually better, except so now you would have to go in and make him, yeah. So you're gonna need, he's gonna accelerate down into the ground, then hit, and then he's gonna compress. And so there's a lot of overshoot and settle. There's a lot of body mechanics that you would have to add to it. But the core motion is phenomenal, and it's doing the interpolation in a way that's tremendously useful. Moving on, here is, I just did a 2-pose run, and not a good one. Like, I didn't focus on, you could see it's going to create this. So I took pose number 1, I then mirrored it to make pose to the middle, the opposite pose, and then I added the last one. And so now when you look at his run, I'll go ahead and turn off the, so you can see it's actually doing quite a decent job. There's some popping, there's some foot contact issues, things like that, or auto physics, which I keep calling it auto posing. Auto posing is things that use AI assisted posing. Auto physics is the thing that attempts to correct the center of gravity and make more realistic movement, and deals with these circles, which are the fulcrum. They're contact points for auto physics to let you know the feet are touching the ground. So you can see we have a nice ground contact there, but this should no longer be a foot contact. That's affecting auto physics for sure. But okay, let's go ahead and turn off. So physics isn't doing much there. And so is this the best run you've ever seen? Absolutely not. But did I just make 2 poses and get this? Yes. Am I asking questions to myself and answering them myself? Also yes. So that's a case where I think you could go put it in between poses. You could get this to be the style that you want with a lot less work than actually building out a run pose. So now I have one where I just did a complex movement where he's standing, kneels down, and I didn't really focus. You can see the posing. I was just also testing whether I could use the IK controllers to get this done, picking something up, and then standing back up. So I didn't do the golden poses. I just did a few of them. So I'll just take you through them again. Standing, kneeling, grabbing, really grabbing, standing. And then when I run in-betweening, this is what it makes. Okay, so you see it freaks out right there with the feet, and he kind of looks like he's being electrocuted, and also being able to put his feet through the ground with impunity. Yeah, so there's some stuff to fix, but all in all, and also there's obviously some center of gravity issues with regards to how he's doing what he's doing. But all in all, the amount of time this would save you with regards to interpolating and putting these things together. If you look, like, the body parts are moving. You see how he stays straight until he gets down to the bottom. Then he bends over. It all looks very nice and natural. But it needs a lot of cleaning work. But I would assert that the cleaning work it needs is less work than it would take to make this animation from scratch. All right, so now let's talk about something that my Tattools spline works on, which is, so I have a starting point where he's standing. I have a point where he's running, right? And then I want him to make a turn and come over here. And so when we in between that, you'll see some issues. So he kind of comes out wide. You'd have to fix that if you didn't want that trajectory to be the way it is. And then that turn doesn't look natural. He just, you see, pops, and there he is. Like, it's not a lot of, that's not how someone's gonna, and then the stopping is a lot of foot sliding. But all in all, it looks quite good. And let's be clear, I made 3 poses to get that done. So the statement of how much time was saved is incredible. Right? You have to fix some weight transfer. You have to fix a bunch of things, but it is quite impressive. I still assert that the a spline-based approach using motion matching is going to be far superior to this. But I made 3 poses and got that entire animation evolution. This is huge. So shout out to Cascadeur for creating like first version, this for the first released version of something. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So I don't want you to think I'm showing you the limitations, because that's what you need to know in order to use it effectively and to know where it is, or whether this is the moment that you're going to invest in Cascadeur to use this thing to improve your animations. I still have, I could just talk about all the issues. I still do all my animation in Unreal, but it's a phenomenal tool. So I tried to fix a parkour animation that was broken. So it went from this to this just to see if it knew how to do it. So, and then from here, he just kind of still has some problems that we could try to go fix. But let's go ahead and see what it does. So not really, like it's not making a dynamic, like, I mean, he's in the air and doing stuff. Now, granted, the out animation is just wacky, but knowing that you're going from here to here, I would expect a more dynamic, explosive thing. But honestly, I think this is purely just lack of coverage in the data set used to train their in-betweening algorithm. Specifically, if they let us bring in our own animation sets and train them, that's the North Star for in-betweening capabilities. That is the next evolution for animation tools, is to train it on your own styles, train it on your own data sets, so that you can then make more rapid your ability to build out stylistic animation sets or build out acting shots and things like that. All right, so this is a 180 where he starts here and then goes there. This is just to show you, you notice his feet don't really translate. This is a failure mode for the in-betweening. If, instead of doing that, if I took these, let's just go grab these two controls, hit W, drag them back this way. If you add a translation to it and click in-betweening, you can actually, so that's wild. Like his head exorcists its way around the other way, whoop. So you can see, so okay, so this is just a pure failure condition. So the way that you would get around this failure condition is, we'll put a key right here using the F key, and we'll just bring this dude's head around. And actually, we're going to put it that way, if anything. So let's see how we get it. So, okay. So, and honestly, if we know where he's headed, like, look at his feet. This is insane. So we know he's going to end up like that. So here's what we'll do. We're going to put this foot closer to where it belongs. So what we need to do, and his arms, what are his arms doing? I'm not fixing how straight his arms are at the moment. I'm actually just putting them outside. So, because I'm going to fix how straight they are by bending his knees a little bit. Okay. Okay, let's try that. I don't know if this is going to work. Well, that's at least much better. So, okay, so you just saw the process of giving the in-betweening a hand. Now, no one pivots off their heels. I think that's probably a sign that that's a cry for help. So we'd have to go fix that. But changing that to be a ball pivot in Unreal specifically is fairly simple. And so I would just take this animation, bring it into Unreal, and then just go hand correct it as I go. Let's look at the next one. So here's one where I have a start. Let's go Shift D. Okay, so this is the case that's not, I think, a failure case for, this might still actually be wacky. My guess is the naturalness of rotations seems to be, yep, there's, he takes a step back and then just whips it around. So that's not terribly natural. So again, we could fix that by guiding it. And one way to guide it actually is, so we have this key right here, then we'll click on it, middle click and drag. That's dragging it over here just to try to force. Yeah, so we'll force it. Once we grab this, it's going to ask us again. We're going to say yes. We're going to bring this over, arms out of his body, because you know, physics, science, you know. So let's go select the rest of this thing. We'll click over here, shift click over here, click in between. Well, let's see if we fixed it. Well, that's a lot better, isn't it? So with a lot less work than it would have taken to make this turnaround, we made this turnaround. So you just have to give it some guidance. And what I will tell you is the maximum it can do is 89 frames of in-betweening. That's its current limit. Okay, so here's a sitting animation. I have him standing, and then he's sitting in a chair. And I ran in-betweening, and it does a great job. Just an absolutely great job. Yes, his arms go through his body, all that, you know, Probably have some issues with autophysics. I actually haven't even checked autophysics. Let's check autophysics. Let's see what happens. I go to physics settings. When I turn on autophysics right here, I go to physics settings and I zeroize the offset because I just want to see what's actually happening. Yeah, so autophysics is having a lot of trouble. That is, okay. So I'm sure there's probably ways to make it better. Like you add the pelvis to be a contact point, and that'll fix a whole bunch of things. But in any event, that is that took I promise you, this took 0 seconds to pose, because that's just the stock, how it starts. I posed this in about 15-20 seconds. And so the concept of sub-minute, I've got an animation that looks like this, is absolutely wild. Yeah. So I've got a roundhouse kick that I did video mocap with, and you can see for the most part it's okay. But during the kick, it freaks out. He leans over, he does a whole bunch of bad things. And so what I wanted to test was replacing the bad part, because I want to see, you know, for kick-like motions, for things like that. So I went from here to there. Now I need to fix this. So there's a lot I need to do. I need to unbake this animation, need to do a lot of stuff and fix it. But I just wanted to test in-betweening that one segment right there. So let's see what it looks like. Honestly, yes, is there a little bit of hitch? Do we have some foot issues, all that kind of stuff? Absolutely, but granted, my inbound and outbound frame were not well matched. So his foot does clearly pivot off of the heel, which actually, that's, for a roundhouse kick, that's actually, your center of gravity pulls you up off of the ground. Your foot can get a lot more active in that violent rotation that comes from the kicking motion. It's interpolation. Look at that. That is fantastic. The arms do what they're supposed to do. Everything looks nice and natural. It tenses up the body to bring up the knee. Like, it's all just much better than what I started with, which was a spastic kick. Last test. So this is a case where the character falls. So this doesn't do a great job. He's obviously levitating effectively. So fall cases, not the best. I'm going to go ahead and turn off. I keep forgetting it's just F. All right. So let's do in-betweening on this now, where we just have a start where he's jogging and an end where he's laying on. So he clearly falls. And let's see what happens. Oh, here, we'll go ahead and just match to the animation so we don't have to wait. Not the worst, not the best, not the worst, right? If I then, let's go ahead and bring this in to like 44 maybe, I don't know, that seems right. Go grab the range again, in between it, let's see. Well, that's starting to look better, isn't it? That looks fantastic. So this is a case where, he's prepping for the fall, but okay, so now let's grab that, and in between that, and so we had 44 was pretty good. All right, let's get this back right. There we go. So that's actually not the worst, right? So that's it's a soft fall. But honestly, turning this into a more impactful fall is, in addition to, the overshoot, the squash, like all the things that need to happen, but it's just animation retiming that that you could really honestly achieve like here. So you see how he just kind of eases his way into it. So if we take this frame and then this frame and we shorten that span, that's going to cause him, I'm going to in between it again because I want to make sure that we get there. I shouldn't have done that. I should have actually just resize. So let's just resize it. I'll show you. Let's make sure that works. So I've got this frame and then this frame. So I go here, I select them and I Control T, and now I can just resize them that way. So let's just make it that much faster. See what happens. Bam. See how he just hits the ground at that point. So now we have a nice, so that's just retiming, right? And so that, so let's talk about, I have a character. I don't know why I brought his arms up. Maybe it's just, anticipation. Jumps. I even gave him an in-between pose to make sure he lands properly and then hits. And when I in-between that, it doesn't know how to do it. So jumping midair, just like we saw with the parkour, I think this is outside the training realm of their in-betweening algorithm. But that's not to throw shade. I wish I had started, I should have finished on the standing fall, which was, quite excellent. The sitting one, which was flawless. You got some weight distribution issues, but I did 2 poses. This did all the work for you. Yeah, you could put that into a game as is right now, and people would be happy with it. They'd be a little confused why his arm goes through his thighs, but you can fix that so fast. This is not a problem. Yeah, this is just such a fantastic capability. So shout out to Cascadeur for making what I felt for a very long time is going to be the most important facet of any animation workflow, which is getting rid of the tedium of in-betweening process, and so that you can focus on the poses, the style, and the actual acting of the shot. I think this, when combined with facial animation in-betweening, is going to be it's going to create an absolute revolution in the speed of animation and also lower the skill floor, meaning newer animators, people who have never animated before, ability to do so just opened up to people who maybe would not have been successful if they had attempted it 2 days ago before this was released. And so it's not quite there yet. You saw its pluses and minuses, but major kudos to the Cascadeur team for creating something so wonderful and focusing on what I think is clearly the most important thing for animation moving forward. Add the ability to drag in animation databases, with just a whole batch of FBXs, that kind of thing, and create styles, because then that would make the ability to create consistent animation sets and extend animation sets for just those, 8 to 10 missing animations that would make motion matching work, etc., would be absolutely crucial. But that's it for me this time. I hope you found this video useful, and see you next time.